May is Mental Health Awareness Month. What are the challenges to mental health today? What factors contribute to that? What factors contribute to things like substance abuse? How can you tell if you're vulnerable? How do you find help? Mental Health Association in New Jersey is the statewide nonprofit organization that helps individuals and families navigate issues surrounding mental and emotional wellness and substance use disorders through advocacy, education, training, and services. You can see their full range of support vehicles at MHANJ.org. The theme this year for MHANJ is Before Stage 4. We're going to learn what that slogan means and how the group's services might be of value to you as we welcome in a good friend of the Ocean County Library, Racheal O'Day. She is MHANJ's Deputy Chief Operating Officer and Director of the organization's Ocean County Operations. Racheal is the text lead for NJ Hope and Healing, the phone and text emotional support helpline, which you might remember extremely well from Superstorm Sandy. She's a certified grief counselor, a professional in anger management guidance, and a disaster response crisis counselor. Racheal, thank you for giving us a few minutes today.
Thank you so much, Tom, for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's start with the basics. May is Mental Health Month, and I imagine that theme itself has evolved over the years at MHA. Can you explain a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, like you had mentioned, May is Mental Health Month. We are big advocates and really stand behind the theme of the Before Stage 4. And before I go into the definition of the stages of before stage 4 and how those individual stages are defined, just a general overview of some of the examples or symptoms people can look for. Some of those things might include trouble sleeping or focusing issues, not eating properly. Some physical symptoms might occur as well, like heart palpitations, feeling different than you usually do, whatever is not your normal, and it being consistent, irritability or memory loss. So those are just some kind of generalized things that you want to look out for when we're looking at Mental Health Month and seeing all the different resources and supports that you can get across the state and with MHANJ.
You mentioned a few symptoms, and they all have different characteristics. Some would likely alarm you, like heart palpitations. But some might not, like irritability or sleep interruption. These may be things that are maybe a little bit more common to somebody. How do you know whether or not this is an issue for you?
That's a great question. And I would like to say that's one of the misconceptions about mental illness. There are physical side effects to it that sometimes we go working throughout our day saying, oh, my stomach has consistently been hurting me. I think it's been what I've been eating, or I'm getting really bad headaches and it's because of X, Y, and Z. And those physical symptoms we try to link with a cause so many times. But the reality of it is, if you feel like that it's not right, you should always talk to your primary care physician, because what might mask itself as a physical symptom could very much be attributed to a mental health concern or a challenge. And so anything that's abnormal to you, you always want to check with your primary care physician, because they will help you differentiate between was it a physical symptom or whether or not it's a mental health system. And sometimes they coincide. So further along that, like you said, some of these things are very generalized, whether it's lack of focus or irritability. And that can be very common, especially in today's state of the COVID pandemic, where emotions are very, very high. It really is going back to basics and understanding what your normal looks like. If you're regularly somebody that has trouble focusing, is it more so than it used to be? Is it impacting your everyday life? Are you unable to produce work? Are you seeing that your patience is really, really thin? Those are different things that you want to compare so that you know when to seek out professional help.
You mentioned the COVID pandemic, and I think that's something we just need to touch on briefly as a sidebar. What have you noticed in the organization through your services? Have you noticed any difference or any issues that have arisen because of, for example, the lack of human contact when we were all basically isolated. Did that isolation result in any syndromes or symptoms that stood out to you?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that the COVID and the isolation parts and the lack of socialization has definitely impacted our program and our agency overall by individuals reaching out for help. We have seen a lot of individuals reaching out for help that have never reached out for help before because the unknowingness of how to cope and not having those normal day to day interactions as they used to have. So, yes, we've seen a drastic increase in that. And I will say that there has been some positive impact, believe it or not, when it comes to reaching out to individuals through this pandemic, where somebody that might have been struggling or living with social anxiety and not wanting to be in big crowds or things like that, offering services in a virtual modality has enabled us to extend our reach and provide services to those individuals. So that has been a shift as well, is accessing some individuals that may not have come out for services prior to this, but now are coming out because of the modality of service.
Before we get into the services, just let's briefly, if I can, get an explanation out of you as to what we mean by before stage 4. I mean, we're accustomed to hearing about diseases, syndromes, conditions in terms of stages now, but I had never really thought of it in terms of mental health. So elaborate a little bit about what that means.
Sure, absolutely. So, like you said, it's heard it with other diseases and illnesses, and very much I've heard this before. Is before stage 4 almost sounds like something when it has to do with cancer, and that's actually the mentality behind it. Is the before stage 4, just like you would with cancer, you want to treat it, identify it early, so that you can continue to be ahead of it. That gives much more availability for success to find wellness and recovery. So the same process is going to be applied when it comes to mental health and before stage 4. So there's different stages where there might be different symptoms that are attached to it that kind of stack up on top of each other and get more severe or increase as the stages progress. And going back to how it should be treated is that you want to catch it before it reaches that before stage 4. You want to get it at the stage 1 and the stage 2 so that you have a higher likelihood to be able to find your wellness and recovery.
The symptoms we mentioned before, irritability, lack of focus, would those be considered stage 1?
Sure, absolutely. The type and severity of symptoms are subjective and they're based on every individual themselves. So that you want to make sure that you, like I said, going back to what your normal looks like, how you individually handle things. But yes, the mild symptoms are stage 1, the warning signs, the irritability, the lack of sleep here and there. Symptoms start to increase when they come to stage 2 in frequency and severity, and they really start interfering with life activities and roles that you have throughout your day. And then continuing on that, stage 3 is symptoms worsen with relapsing and reoccurring episodes that are usually accompanied by very serious life disruptions of your activities and your roles. And then stage 4 is when they're persistent and they're severe and they have jeopardized one's life. So again, they kind of stack on top of each other and gradually get worse. So it's the best thing to do is to just kind of keep your mental health always on the forefront and what your normal interactions look like so to identify when those symptoms start to get different.
When someone goes to MHANJ.org, they will find a plethora of services and recommendations, and it's a wealth of information. This being Mental Health Awareness Month, is there anything that the group is doing, especially with regard to that?
Our mission is to always meet a person where they're at, treat them individually, and really try to identify the best services and supports that we can offer to get them on their path of wellness and recovery. So that's typically our mission all the time, no matter what pandemic or non-pandemic we are in. The only change that you will see for specific services and things like that might be things that are COVID related, a little bit more emotional support when it comes to that, different populations that are being served so that we can, again, reach out to as many people that might need assistance. But you are always going to go to MHANJ.org and get that wealth of information that you said.
What are you providing in Ocean County for people with mental health challenges, with substance use disorder challenges?
We actually are offering a lot of co-occurring programs. We offer our recovery peer outreach support team. We offer family services for recovery and co-occurring. We actually also have 2 new programs that I'm very excited to mention. We have what is known as Texting for Recovery. That is a new Ocean County Health Department funded program where individuals and families can actually text recovery to 51684 and be linked up directly to peer recovery specialists, resources, and information right at their fingertips with their cell phone, iPad, or any other mobile device. So that's new to the Ocean County. We're very excited. We also have what's known as Recovery Hotspot. That's going to be our mobile van that is going to provide well trafficked areas like food pantries and clinics and Board of Social Services, a mobile unit of resources and information when it comes to mental health and substance use supports and services. You'll be seeing our van. If you haven't already seen it out there yet, you'll be seeing a van coming around in Ocean County, just offering out more help.
What are some of the misconceptions that we used to run under that no longer exist?
Some of the common misconceptions that we still see is that mental health is not treatable and that people can't recover. That's one of the biggest ones. Recovery and wellness are possible. It's just getting the right supports and services at these individuals' disposal. Another misconception would be that mental illness is contagious. It's not contagious. People are afraid, and that fear leads to even more misconceptions. So that's unfortunate. If someone has a mental illness, it means that they're crazy and they can't function in the rest of society. And sometimes it costs them their job or their relationships within their families and friends. And that is not true. If someone gets the right supports and services in place and finds wellness and recovery, they can 100% be valuable assets to our community and the rest of society. Another misconception would be that the person with mental illness is inadequate and can't respond to day-to-day tasks at work or in the daily roles that they have. We at MHANJ, we hope to educate our communities about the stigma. Those misconceptions that I just spoke of are all parts of the stigma that we're trying to break, and the stigma of mental health that often deters people from getting help with what they need. So education is the way that we try to combat the stigma.
One thing that occurred to me along the way, if someone wants to tap into your services, or if someone needs a referral from MHANJ, should there be anything that they should know ahead of time about insurance issues? Does this come into it at all?
First, I'd like to say that all the services at MHANJ are absolutely free. We don't take insurance. We don't charge anything. There's no co-pays. We are 100% absolutely free. When it comes to helping people with resources and linkages to other providers, clinicians, and things like that, where insurance does come into play, the best thing that I can tell individuals to do is to call our helplines, and that can be our New Jersey Mental Health Cares helpline for anybody that has any type of question or concern about mental health or insurance. And that phone number is 1-866-202-HELP.
You want to repeat that just once?
1-866-202-HELP.
I don't want anybody to miss that. We really want to look a little bit at substance abuse disorders too. Is there any causal connection between one and the other, or do they exist in separate worlds?
Sometimes it is. It's really dependent upon the individual. Every person is different. Sometimes it's a chicken or the egg situation on top of that. So sometimes within the field of substance use disorder, mental illness is far removed, but sometimes they work very close in hand, from mental illness that can trigger somebody to maybe use in order as a form of coping skill. So that's really where the linkage you really start to see is if somebody has an undiagnosed or an underlying mental health condition, sometimes they will use substances in order to mask some of those signs and symptoms of mental health as a coping strategy. So you will be able to see that linkage. But it really does go back to the individual themselves and whether or not there is a clear linkage between mental health and substance use.
What are some of the services that someone enduring a substance use disorder can avail themselves of at MHANJ.org?
Sure, absolutely. So the best thing I can tell you to do is go right back to our website to get all the individual services that we have, and that's www.mhanj.org. And you'll be able to see all the different programs through county and statewide services that are offered for mental health and or substance use specific.
What do you say to someone who might be listening right now and through all of this is actually in denial? Well, that's not me, but it might be. What would you say to somebody like that?
I would say start the conversation. If you think it may be you, have that conversation. Have that conversation with somebody that you love, somebody that will support you. And if you don't have the right supports in place at home, then talk to your primary care physician. I would say reach out to a call center, but start that conversation somewhere. Make talking about your mental health and your emotions and what you're going through part of your new normal, because sometimes that denial is part of that stigma, and you're never going to be able to get the help if you stay there. So you just want to start that conversation.
New normal could be a negative, but there are so many ways to turn it into a positive. MHANJ.org.
Absolutely.
I've run out of questions for you. Is there anything to add?
I don't think so. I think we got it all.
Racheal O'Day of the Mental Health Association of New Jersey, thank you for this valuable information during Mental Health Awareness Month. See the association's full range of services at MHANJ.org. Thanks for listening to OCL Soundways. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more informative, educational, and entertaining podcasts and videos.